Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and I want to discuss two reasons why people believe killer profilers and why they believe this guy, psychic mediums. Why is this? And it's very interesting. I think people do not understand why these kind of con artists can get people to think they have some kind of great insight, great intuition, whatever you want to call it. Why is this? And I'm going to give you two reasons. Yesterday, I did a video, my Hangout number 68. I'll link it below because I had seen Ken Maines, who I've liked to show very much on YouTube, bring on this guy. His name is William Noguera. He is a San Quentin inmate on death row. He is a brutal killer. He premeditated a financial murder of his girlfriend's mother, who he bludgeoned almost 24 times and strangled. Nasty crime. And now they have a partnership, and Ken Maines is doing a weekly show with him, and he is profiling crimes. Now, he's done this before. He's already had a podcast he was involved in, and he profiled crimes. So I have a link below where I describe much more about this guy. So you can go there and find out his entire background and how he is still exactly what he was many years ago, a psychopath, a pathological liar, and a manipulator. And yeah, you go there and check that out. But what I want to explain to you is why people believe somebody like this and why a professional would even support something like this. And Tyler Henry, who's a psychic medium, why Nancy Grace, who I worked with for many years, ended up on his show. Okay, let me start with the basics as to the number one reason people fall for this con job that these kind of guys do, psychopathic killers who are able to reach out to people from prison and psychic mediums, whatever you want to call them, who sometimes reach out to police and say, I have information, or they have shows like Tyler Henry where they make millions, and have celebrities on the show, and they reach out to the spirit world and tell the celebrity what their loved one who has died is telling them. Okay, why do people fall for this? All right. Number one reason, because it's magic. Magic. Okay, so let's say I say something about, they just did a whole show on the Idaho student murders. I have done shows on the Idaho student murders. I have given my analysis of, there's very limited information, so I state that. And I give my analysis of where I think they're at the moment, the detectives, and what they might be looking at. I give an analysis. During that analysis, I give my reasoning. What evidence leads me to come up with this conclusion or this determination? Now, you may not like my conclusion or determination. And believe you me, some people will come right out and say, I think you're wrong. Okay. You know why they say they think I'm wrong? Because they can, because there's no magic in what I do. I'm explaining my thinking, my reasoning. You may not think my thinking is very good, and you have the right to do so. But there's nothing magical about what I say. I say what I see, and I explain it. Then we get the magical killer profiler. What does he do? Well, I'm going to tell you, he has a lot in common with people like Tyler Henry. They do, the psychics, they do the same two things. The first thing is a hot reading, and the second thing is a cold reading. What is a hot reading? Okay, a hot reading is where before you even do a show, you bone up on everything you can find about the person you're doing the show on, whether it's a murder or whether it's a well-known celebrity personality and the death of her fiance, whatever it is, you bone up on it, okay? You go and you read everything you can. You read, for example, this guy, he's been in prison for 40 years. He's got nothing to do with his time. He has access to books. And he has probably read everything every profiler ever wrote. He's probably read John Douglas, Robert Ressler. I don't know if he ever read one of my books, probably not. But hey, he's got lots of people, books he can read, profilers. He is learning from them. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but this is called hot reading. He is taking other people's information, which he can then use at a later date. Same thing for psychic mediums. They go and they look at Facebook pages, Twitter pages, they read Wikipedia. And certainly somebody like Nancy Grace is not exactly, her history isn't hidden. It's all out there. My history is out there. If Tyler Henry wanted to talk to me about, let's see, who died in my family? My father and mother have died. If he brought me in, my God, he could find a lot of information about me. I've talked about my father. I've talked about my mother. He could find my entire background. I wrote a book. It's all in there. He can do what's called hot reading, which is preparation. Now, that's fine, except that you don't admit you're doing that. Now, when I became a criminal profiler, one of the things I did was I read over 400 books. Absolutely true. I just got everything I could. And anytime I looked at in the book, and there was something in the bibliography, a book I didn't know, or in the footnotes, I said, this is where I got this information from. I went and bought that book. I had a huge library and I read everything and I took notes. There's nothing wrong with that. That's called educating yourself. That's called learning. There's nothing wrong with it. But I admit that. Not so much true with these people. They don't admit where they get their knowledge from. And by the way, sometimes television shows don't admit that either. Do you know how many times I have been called from some television show and they say, "Hey, Pat, we want you on our show. What do you think about this?" And I give them my opinion because it's what you call a pre-interview. And then they call back and say, "Oh, sorry, we can't have you on." And then lo and behold, the person on the show says exactly what I said. That's called a hot reading. They stole my stuff. Okay. This happens quite often. People don't know that because they're not in the industry, but it does. All right. So this is a hot reading. So this guy has spent 40 years in prison. He has read every book probably he can get a hold of. And there's nothing wrong with that. He has the right to do that. But he's not explaining that that's how come he has this information. Tyler Henry is also probably a hot reader like you wouldn't believe, because the show where he comes in here with Nancy Grace, he shows up at her house and he goes, "I wonder whose house this was." I don't know. Maybe the fact that there's cameras everywhere. I'm going to say somebody leaked the information and you have read everything you can about Nancy Grace. So when he goes in the house and goes, "Oh my God, it's Nancy Grace." You've already done your hot reading. You know everything about Nancy, her fiance, all of that stuff. So that's the first part. It's called a hot reading. So what happens is the person who's doing the hot reading can be very articulate. And this guy, I'm going to say it, 100% psychopath. He still lies. He lies about how he claims that the murder he committed at age 18 was an argument gone bad. No, it wasn't. It was a premeditated financial murder where he bludgeoned and strangled a woman to death. He's still lying about that crime. And if you go to, you'll see in my link below, if you go there, I will read lots of stuff from his biographies, and he's still lying. He's got grandiose thinking. He's a manipulator. He absolutely is still the psychopath he always was. Okay? So, but you're not going to know that because he's not going to admit that. So what happens is all the background that they do before they get to the show is something they pretend doesn't exist, because what they want you to think is that it's coming from their incredible brain. For me, I'm going to tell you straight up, I've studied profiling for years. I've studied everything I can get my hands on. I've worked cases, and I'm going to tell you when I give any kind of a conclusion or a determination, I'm going to tell you how I got there from the evidence. You may not disagree with me. You may not even like me, but that's okay, because I'm being honest. And here's my problem. I hate grifters and I hate liars, and I don't like people to support them. Okay? That's straight up front. That really pisses me off because people fall for this garbage. So anyway, we have hot readings. Got the hot reading part? Okay, now we're going to go to cold readings. All right, he does cold readings and he does cold readings. So Nagura here is on there with Ken Maines on his channel, Unsolved No More. And by the way, these let me just show you a photo of the two shows that I'm talking about. So the one on top is Hollywood Medium, but with Tyler Henry. Oh my God, he's so popular. Millions of people just think he's the cat's meow. And there he is with Nancy Grace. And the one on the bottom is the new show by Ken Maines. It's called Redemption from Death Row. This dude has no redemption. The guy's still a psychopath. He could care less about human beings. He's playing everyone. I would say he's playing Ken Maines, but I'm beginning to think that this guy's getting so much attention. Look at this. He's got his face. Oh, my goodness. Yes, he has profiled the Idaho. Look at him. He's right there with the Idaho student murders. I'm going to say, this is going to be my guess. There's going to be a new television show coming out, a documentary series. It's going to be these guys. Okay. So now let me go to cold reading. All right. So now you have Nagura on here with Ken Maines. Ken Maines says, what do you think about this case? Well, first of all, he's very articulate. People who are psychopaths are very good at being glib, and they're very good at manipulation. So they're very believable. They even sound like they have a heart. They can play the part, and you got to understand they can play the part. I would say, I'm going to be honest, probably way more people will like this guy than me. And I've had accusations. You're being petty about this. You're jealous. You're some old bag lady. You're a fraud. Why? Because I'm upfront and I'm honest, and I understand some people don't like me, and that's okay with me. You have a preference for somebody else, that's fine. What I have a problem with is anybody has a preference for this piece of crap. And I have a problem that Ken Maines is promoting this piece of crap on a platform which gets a tremendous amount of people because they believe in him. So they believe in him. So anyway, he gets on here now, and now we have what we call cold reading. Okay, so Ken says, okay, what do you think about this crime? Now, what he does is he mixes the hot reading with the cold reading. Hot reading is where you got your information prior to doing this, and cold reading is where you look at the person you're talking to, like Tyler Henry does with Nancy Grace, who, by the way, was totally opposed to psychics. She did. She was absolutely opposed to psychics. She said so over and over again, and suddenly she appears on Tyler Henry's show, and he's telling her about her fiance, and she's like, "Oh my God, you're so. I didn't think you'd be real, but you are." Nancy, what the heck? When I was on your show, if I said anything, you said, "Pat, where are you coming up with that from?" And I'd have to explain it. But you didn't ask him to explain anything. And that's where the cold reading comes in, and this is where magical thinking comes in. So the cold reading part is where you throw things out and you watch the response of the person. This guy threw out, they thought they were in the house. And Ken Maines' response was, "Oh, interesting." Didn't object to it. Later on in another video said, "I don't quite agree with that." Well, why didn't you not agree with that then? Why didn't you just say, "Why do you think that they were in the house? Like the killer was in the house with the students?" Why didn't you ask that then? He said, "The killer is 5'11". Ken Maines did not respond. Well, hey, how do you know the killer is 5'11"? Where'd you get that crap from? He says the killer doesn't live in town. He's 40 to 50 miles away. Why don't you say, where'd you get that crap from? Okay, I want to know what evidence supported what you're thinking. But he throws things out because it's magical thinking. Magical thinking. And you know why it's magical thinking? All right. If I say something, they know I'm a profiler. I have no magic, okay? I'm not a psychic who has connections to the spirit world. I'm not a killer who understands, because I'm a killer, the mind of other killers, which is nonsense beyond belief. He committed one crime. He doesn't understand other killers. That's garbage. It's the same reason psychics are garbage too. They don't actually connect with the spirit world. It's a con. It's a con. So, but with a profiler who doesn't claim to to meld with the mind of a killer or to contact the spirit world, people can look at me and go, "I don't know if I agree with you." Where'd you get that from? Why are you saying that? And they should be able to say that. And I should be able to say, "Okay, here's my explanation." Whether you agree with that or not is up to you, but here's my explanation. And as I always say, profiling is a tool in law enforcement. It shouldn't be a proclamation. It's a tool that law enforcement can use to determine what's a better direction to go. That's what it's for. But he says something, and you know what I see in the comments on his channel? Oh my God, the guy has so much insight. What are you talking about? He's making stuff up. He's just guessing stuff. And you think he has insight. Why? Oh, because he's a killer. Magical thinking. Because he's a killer somehow. Unlike a profiler, you can't question how he comes up with what he says, because what he says is so fascinating, so insightful, so intuitive, because he's a killer and he knows other killers. And therefore, whatever he says, we're just going to accept. Same thing with a psychic medium. He can say anything. And it's because, oh my God, well, I'm not going to question him. He's got contact with the spiritual world. He's talking, he sees spirits. He's having visions. He's not just looking at evidence. He has visions. So we can't question him. This is why police get screwed with these psychics that come in. Everybody says, you should bring a psychic in. Because when a psychic says, I see her body lying by a barn. I mean, if I say somebody's body's lying by a barn, somebody says, why the hell do you think her body's lying by a barn? And I better have a good reason. But the psychic doesn't need a reason. I see it in a vision. And everybody goes, oh my God, I think that psychic can see the body by the barn. No, the psychic is making it up. It's a con game. And when he says, oh, that guy lives 40 to 50 miles away and he's 5'11" and he was in the house at the time, he doesn't back up anything he says with any evidence. He's just making up stuff that you're believing because, oh my God, he's got the mind of a killer and therefore he understands killers. No, he doesn't. He's got the mind of a psychopath and he's lying because he's a pathological liar. He's a manipulator. He's glib. He knows how to get over. That's what he's doing. So the number one reason people believe people like this and people like this is because of the magical component, that they somehow know something none of the rest of us mortals could know, because the rest of us have to depend on evidence or human intellect. We got nothing else. But these guys have this special quality of being able to meld with the minds of spirits over here, killers over here. And therefore, whatever they say, we cannot question. That's the con game. Stop falling for it. That's the first reason that people fall for it. And it so upsets me because it is a con game. And put your money where there's people and your attention where there's people teaching you something educational, where there's something of worth. Okay? And again, you don't have to agree with everybody. You don't have to think everybody's right all the time. Experts aren't right all the time. But at least you can learn from them. And they're not faking you out. They're not con artists. All right. That's the first reason that people believe in psychics and mediums. Psychics and killer profilers. All right. Second reason, editing. So if I could edit myself right there, I'd have a much smoother delivery, wouldn't I now? But see, you saw a little falter because I said the wrong word. And you go, oh, see? No, I'm unedited. You're getting this straight. So if I mess up, and you see a human being. You don't see a magical person. All right. Now, the second reason, right here and right here. Nancy, done your show for years. You called me out on anything that you wanted me to know that you weren't going to buy something if I didn't support it. All the time I heard this. I was on your show for years. Pat Brown, where do you come up with that? And I would have to explain myself. You get on the show with him, you don't question him at all. You allow this whole fake thing to go on. And you support it, and then you praise it, in spite of the fact your voice says psychics are con artists. Why are you doing this? Why would you dupe? You, a professional, people trust you. You're a prosecutor. You're a person who believes in evidence and facts. And suddenly this person people rely on because they think you are ethical, suddenly support this lying con artist. Why would you do this? I don't know. Was there a lot of money in it? I don't understand it. Was there a huge payday? I don't get it. And it really upsets me because, I was on your show for years. It bothers me. It's unethical for you to support this guy when you know he's a con artist. And then people, all your followers say, oh, maybe he's not a con artist because Nancy Grace thinks he isn't. That's wrong. I'm sorry. That's wrong. Same thing over here. I'm sorry. I am calling out Ken Maines on this. You can call me petty. You can call me whatever you damn well please. But I have recommended Ken Maines' channel because I believed up until now he was ethical. I didn't always agree with his determinations any more than he necessarily agreed with every determination I made. But I liked the fact that he was a retired detective who was bringing his knowledge and his experience to the public and explaining things. And all of a sudden, he's hooked up with a psychopath. And he's telling people this psychopath has something to offer them. And that we can learn from this psychopath. And that these two can solve cold crimes together because this psychopath has something more than any other detective or profiler or anybody out there in the world. This lying piece of garbage, this con artist who is doing hot readings and cold readings, you're giving him a platform. I'm sorry. It upsets me tremendously because that's unethical. Why are you doing it? I don't know, but I have seen your view rate. It's rocketing. And you've already talked about different networks coming to you. So I'm going to guess there's going to be a show. Somebody's going to get a whole series and it's going to pay. I don't have any objection to people making money. People accuse me of that too sometimes. Oh, you're just doing that for views. No, I'm not doing it just for views, but I understand the fact that when you want to survive, because if you do a YouTube channel, folks, you can work on a YouTube channel for years and never make a penny. And if that's your full-time job because you have to build your channel, you can't eat. So I understand people have to earn a living. And if you write a book, people say, oh, you wrote a book to make money. Sometimes you write a book because you have something to share, but of course you don't mind making some money because you worked for an entire year or two on the book. When I did my book on Cleopatra, I flew to Egypt. I spent a month in Egypt. I spent my own money. Then I came back and I researched to death on that book. And I spent a tremendous amount of time doing my research on Cleopatra to come up with my book, The Murder of Cleopatra. I have never made my money back on that book. And part of me says, I don't care because I love the subject matter and I wanted to get it out to people. Another part of me says, I like to eat. I'd like to earn a living. And YouTube can be a place where you can work for 2 years and not make a penny. Or you can start making money, but you're making so far under minimum wage, it's ridiculous. So I don't object to Ken Maines earning a living off of his YouTube channel. I don't object to Nancy Grace earning a living on television. I don't object to people earning a living. I object to stuff that's unethical and giving platforms to con artists. This one and this one, total con artists. And there's two people who people give the respect that are giving a platform to these con artists. And I'm sorry, I don't agree with it. And I may lose a ton of subscribers over this. I already have by speaking out. But I want people to understand they should listen to people of worth. And that's not a person of worth. And that's not a person of worth. Spend your time with better people, with better educators. Don't support con artists and don't fall for con artists. I do feel very strongly about this, as you can see. I don't like psychopaths. I don't like pathological liars. I don't like liars. I don't like grifters. I respect you have every right. There's YouTube people out there who tell a story, and they're true crime people. They tell a story. They do a good job of it. They don't overdo the analysis, which they're not capable of doing. They're just telling a great story and have a wonderful voice. And they've got 1 million subscribers. Bully for them. I've recommended them as long as they don't do something I think is unethical. I'm never going to have 1 million subscribers because I have an educational channel. I'm okay with that. And that they have 1 million subscribers, yeah, they probably worked for it. And they're good at what they do. And they have every right to be successful. But be ethical. That's my one requirement in this world. Be ethical. And don't support psychopaths and con artists who have nothing really to offer except maybe a way for you to earn more money. And that to me is not okay. All right, that's what I have to say about this. And I'll let the chips fall where they may, because I just, I'm very upset about this. And I don't like it when I see it, because there's Ken Maines had a lot to offer without this guy. And now I have trouble recommending the channel because now I'm not so trustworthy of his reasoning for having this creep on there. And I'm terribly, terribly bothered by it. But check my link below because I explain a lot more about this guy. I will also put up a link, a really great link about Nancy Grace and her history with bringing people like Mark Edward on her channel saying, hey, you know, this is all a con game. And all of a sudden she shows up in Tyler Henry and somebody who was very upset about that. So I'm going to put those links below. Ethics are important. They are. And when it comes down to analyzing crime, it's about victims, and these victims are being used. And again, you know, people make money off of victims, detectives do. I mean, they work tremendous hours on cases. They earn a living. Coroners do, and YouTube people do, and television people do, and book writers do. Everybody makes money off of victims, just because in the whole line of work, you're still going to earn a living. That's true. But then there's the abuse of victims, and that's an entirely different thing. And I don't believe for a minute that these two are going to solve cold cases because of this piece of crap. I'm sorry. I don't believe it. He's already done I think he's done podcasts with over 24 shows, and he hasn't solved any of those. So I just find that concerning, shall I say. Concerning. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to stop talking now. If you haven't been to my channel and you aren't really super angry with me, please do like the video. Please do subscribe. Share it to your true crime groups because I'm trying to bring out profiling education, crime scene analysis, and learning, not just gossiping, okay? And not bringing on people who shouldn't be on. Anyway, bye, everybody.